a man who embodies the value of a liberal arts education, a man crossing what too many see as a line dividing disciplines, particularly the humanities, from other disciplines. Tom Parham graduated from Barton, then Atlantic Christian College, with a Bachelor of Arts in Physical Education and English. And he'll talk some today about legendary English professor Mildred Hartsock, the demanding and outspoken longtime chair of English, beloved by many non-English major students who have shared with me their stories of appreciating and admiring her after they left her classes. I don't know what Tom says. Parham's accomplishments illustrate that this marriage of bodily movement and reading and cerebral pondering works well to create a meaningful life. He earned his Master of Education degree from UNC Chapel Hill and coached tennis at Barton. My sound has changed. From 1964 to 1983, serving the following 2 years as athletic director. He led the tennis team here to the NAIA National Tennis Championships in 1979 and 1984, and then went to Elon University, where he again led a team to a national championship. Elon awarded him the Elon Medallion, its highest honor, when he retired in 2004. 4 times Tom was named NAIA National Coach of the Year, and he serves now on the North Carolina Tennis Association's Board of Directors. In 1979, and this is one of my favorite accolades, Tom received the highest civilian honor the state of North Carolina awards, the Order of the Longleaf Pine. He's published 3 books, The Little Green Book of Tennis, Play is Where Life Is, and A Lot as one word with a lot of noise there. So a lot is one word, which I don't let my students use. All caps, a level of thinking. Last October, Tom donated his collection of 30-plus books and 4 DVDs about Bob Dylan, American troubadour, to the library. Dylan, of course, is a songwriter, singer who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2016 for his often politically and socially conscious lyrics. I'm really interested in what Tom is going to say about Dylan. And my Dylan story, I don't know if you know this one, is that he showed up on the porch of Carl Sandburg's home in Flat Rock, North Carolina, the home called Connemara, unannounced, and just knocked on the door and asked if he could come in to kind of learn from the poet and folk singer Carl Sandburg and understand that he said, come on in. And he entertained Bob Dylan for a while. So welcome back.
Thank you. I'm going to let Bob kick it off with a short film there so my high-level technician there can just cut this on for a minute. Won't take long. You might want to dance. Can you hear me back there if I hold this? Dr. Gunwin, thank you for helping set this up. And Rob, everybody's been helpful. Terry, Ramey, Kennedy. I'm not sure that Ralph was a Dylan fan, but I sure wish he was here tonight. And thanks for helping. Now there's a bunch of old folks in here, and that sound got there, but most of them can't hear real well, so it really doesn't bother them. But they're in here. I know I can look at you and tell they've seen this, and I don't know what that is about, but I'm going to find out what's going to happen there. So stick up your hand if you're one of those. You're really not sure why you're here, but you're here. So I know who you are. I came to school here in 1959. I didn't know much about Eastern North Carolina. I didn't know Atlantic Christian. My father was a Baptist minister, and I wanted to play basketball, and they told me they'd let me play. So I came without any big ideas or having done anything real intellectual or Bob Dylan-like. And quite honestly, it was a docile time. 1950 was pretty easy compared to 1960 and later. And those the 60s, I was either a student here or a faculty person here. So that's a period of time that I went through, and I'm wondering now if there aren't some similarities between then and now. I was floating along, and a very nice lady who taught me freshman English, his name was Frances Woodard. Some of you may remember. And she told me one day, and I would say this to a lot of you teachers, coaches, she told me, she said, you know, you have a talent for writing, and you might ought to be an English major, and you might ought to start out with a class under Mildred Hartsock, Dr. Hartsock, who of course was an icon here, and the voice of the faculty, a crusty little lady with a Madras jacket on, a pair of long white pants and nurse's boots, and smoked Chesterfield and had a real raspy voice, and caught my attention right off the bat. And she began to make me aware that there are some problems out there, and about the same time that was becoming an awareness, those problems began to crop up. You will remember, if you were here, the end of the racial situation, the Vietnam War, the drug situation, all those volatile periods of time. I was under her tutelage and where she would direct you to see those things. And she was a real mentor to a lot of us, and I think probably that's the best way to learn. So I would encourage the people who are here now to know that you can have a long-term effect on people. And then other people around, very few people. My good friend Dan Hensley is here, and he remembers Dan McFarland, who I thought was just a great teacher. And I remember him saying that you have conservative Republicans, liberal Republicans, conservative Democrats, and liberal Democrats. There's a whole bunch of folks, and let's find the middle. So that's something he said to me in 1959 or 60 that I think today is applicable. And Dr. Hamlin, if you don't know who Dr. Hamlin was, I've got a couple of the history books back there. I just had, anybody wants one, they'll tell you about C.H. Hamlin, who taught till he was 92 years old, and told us we got no business messing with those Viennese. They call them the Viennese. And Dr. Hamlin was the first person I met that had enough courage to be a pacifist. And he was truly that. He didn't want anybody else to go to war. And he gave you age, so we all fought to get in his class, literally fought to get in his class. And the people who are students here should be aware of what the C.H. Hamlin building represents. In class one day, Dr. Hartsock said something that I hadn't heard anything root. If you wouldn't let your children marry a black person, you're prejudiced. That was a stunning thing for me to hear in 1959. So those are ideas that I picked up during that period of time. I can vividly remember those things now. They stick with you. Listen, Eastern North Carolina, and it's true to this day, the people down here are funny. I don't know whether you know it or not, but there was humor down here, and part of the humor, my mother played piano, was the choir director, and we sang Blessed Assurance. I knew all that, and that's what my bedrock beliefs were. And then all of a sudden there was black music, the devil's music. And I had a friend named Jack Hussey, who was a basketball teammate. His granddaddy made money off chickens and buried his money. Didn't believe in banks. He buried his money in fruit jars in 50-cent pieces, and we watched him bury them. And we dug them up. And we went to see Chuck Berry and Little Richard Domino and Joe Turner and Laverne Baker, and there's a white guy in there. Elvis was in there. Had a white guy in there. So I had that love for music and was right in the middle of all that, I can tell you that. So then all of a sudden here comes the Black Album with Joan Baez on the cover, and she is deliciously good looking and a voice from an angel. And so, hey, let's go hear her. And so March 19th, 1965, I went right by myself to the Raleigh, Reynolds Coliseum. And she brought Bob along, and I knew who Bob was, but I didn't. This is the 60s, and he was churning that stuff out left and right. And so I go over there and listen to him, and come out of it like everybody else. He can't sing a lick, and I don't know what he's saying. All right. But I began to stay with that, and in the school of Mildred Hartsock, he was telling the truth somehow or the other. And it came through maybe as much as a feeling as anything else. This feels like he knows what he's talking about. And of course, he was an old soul, one of those people who was wise and had no idea where it came from, the ability to do what he did during that period of time. All of a sudden, he disappeared. Had the motorcycle wreck. I don't know whether you all remember that, but he was gone. And I was a single person here teaching and coaching and loving it. And he's not here anymore. And like I say, I was trying to be a good professional, but I knew the other side of it. And me and my buddy Pete Craig jumped in that Marine Corvette and drove down to Atlanta to the Atlanta Pop Festival. I don't know whether anybody remembers that. 150,000 people. Janis Joplin, Joe Cocker, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Delaney, Bonnie and Friends, Dave Brubeck. It had 20 acts. And it was, hey, there's some different cats out here now. Something else going on. So I, all of a sudden the sound, every time they stopped a show and there was no sound, you heard Lay Lady Lay. Bob Dylan. Sounded like a pretty good idea to begin with. And hey, my boy's back. And I asked somebody, is Dylan going to be at Woodstock? And he said, no, but he's back. He's here again. So all of a sudden, Pete and I ride back and said, this is July 4th. Let's go to Woodstock. And we were headed up there, and lo and behold, he said, wait a minute. Said that he was a pro baseball player, played with the Senators. And he knew all those guys. He said, let's go to the baseball game. So we went. He said, if you go to the baseball game, instead of going to Woodstock, I'll introduce you to Ted Williams. And Ted I was a Ted Boston fan, so there was no choice. I missed Woodstock. I hate to admit that. That year, another element hit. It's like the Don Corleone in the Godfather when they had the Thunderbolt. And her name was Margaret, and she came from Canada. And you talk about the times that are changing. Now I'm out of Corvettes and in the station wagon. Here comes another child. He's sitting right back there. And so it was a period of time that I didn't have an inclination to be a hard rock band member. Working, teaching, coaching, and loved it. I loved all of that. And then there was a factor that emerged in that, to be honest, that caused a deepening of all this. Maybe this is a little bit more serious, and I'll be thinking a little bit more seriously about that. And it was drinking. I'm not here to preach to anybody about drinking, but I did enough of it, and I decided that it was better for me to not do that. And Johnny Carson said the other night, they had a film of him saying alcohol was not good for him. And I fitted that category, and I had 2 children now. We had a couple of bad car accidents, and I'm teaching don't drink and drive. And I'm thinking, what if I get a DUI? What if I hurt somebody? So I put that down. And when I did, I had more time. It's amazing how much time drinking takes. Drinking takes a lot of time. And so in order to do that, to fill that time, I began to read. I said, I'll be a better reader. And I went through everything James Mitchell had to write. And then I went, there were other great ones, but Dylan would always be in it. Hey, there's a catch line here. This line makes a lot of sense. This is true, I believe. This really is poetry. and maybe deepen an appreciation for all that. Then the next bellwether for me was illness. I had and I won't dwell on that, but I had a 4-year period of time where I was beat up, banged up, and I had all kinds of problems, which led to a lot of rehab. Terry Russell got me when he said, "I'm worried about Ralph." And I said, "Why is that?" He said, "I'm worried about his rehab." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because he's never done the half." If you watch daytime television, soap operas, and The Price is Right all day long, you get mighty bored. So I filled that down with probably the most fundamental thing was I bought the lyrics book. And now I can tell what he's saying, and I can mix the two together. And I think it's fundamental that the two are combined. Somebody said it's art on a jukebox, you know. So I'm now studying that more and more. The serious, my son Dan, got me into this. He said, "You've got some things to say, and there are wicked sins, and we are still dealing with some of those wicked sins." And he dealt with them then. And I think war probably affected me more than any of them. Coming along in the Vietnam thing, just watched the Ken Burns 18-hour program, and it was an awfully impressive thing, particularly for somebody who had a lot of reservations about that, not knowing how to feel about that, and looking back on it now and wondering where my courage was. In terms of the war, I moved down there to Camp Lejeune. We're 20 minutes from the base. We can hear them bombing down there, and it goes on all the time. And I got involved with 2 groups of golfers and a poker group. The VFW, the bartender, ticked off all the poker players, and they played in a private home. So I'm one of the VFW Vietnam. My table has 6 Vietnam vets in it. I played in 2 golf groups that featured veterans, people who had been in it. And I made a point while I would get them apart and to ask them how they felt about everything. Excuse me, I'm getting dry here. And these are the guys that, you know, one guy was the number 2 bombardier of everybody that was over there. And he hid from me. He wouldn't come around me. I say, "He heard you were one of those peaceniks." And I said to him, I never held it against the military people. And he said, "Oh, you hate the war but love the warrior." And I think I'm one of those people. I never did feel like we treated a lot of people. Those people came home and made them villains in the whole deal. So I don't want anybody to think that I felt that way about it. But even then, and even now, we're not treating them right. And you all know the story on all that. But I would ask one what he thought, and he said, "We were there 2 weeks, and it was about an average of about 2 weeks before you realized you'd had business over there." It took him about 2 weeks. One guy, "What about Iraq? Stupid, evil. Cheney's a chicken hawk." "What's a chicken hawk?" And Dylan said it, "Master of war. You take a gun, put it in my hand, and you close your eyes when the fast bullets fly." Those people who benefit from war do not fight in war. And people who send their children to be in wars, they're not the people who profit. So it begins to see that maybe that emerged that war has a long tail. And that began to cause me some concern or some thought. And I would suggest to you, as one person did to me, if you've studied that film, he said, go back and listen to that guy, John Musgrave. you know, the one in the film, you know who I'm talking about? He's the guy that knows how we feel. And if you watch that film, listen to John Musgrave. So that was a serious topic then and now. Religion, Dylan OD'd on that. He had Dylan. There's some humor about Dylan. Dylan doesn't say much. Margaret and I rode out there and went to Winter Park, Colorado, then to Casper, Wyoming, and then to Jackson Hole. And then in Jackson Hole, he said, "Member of the band bought a hog." He said, "Well, what are you going to do with that big hog?" He said, "I'm going to take him back with me." He said, "Well, you going to take him on the bus?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "What about the smell?" He said, "The hog will get used to it." So he had 49 children, 49 wives. He introduced the band. "This is my wife, this is my ex-wife, this is my next wife, and this is my girlfriend." He had that side to him, and sort of intriguing. He hit that religious period of time, and he said Carolyn Dennis, one of his backup single wives, he said, "I asked her for religion, and she gave me an overdose." But he had this tremendous talent and ability. I have a booklet back there that's got it was not an academic thing, but just a random series of things. One of them has it's a bibliography of all the books back that are here in Hackney Library now, and one of them deals with set lists, what he played every night. Been playing for the Never Ending Tour has been going on 20 years. He plays 40 nights, takes a month off, and comes back again. He starts back in March in Lisbon. He goes all over Europe, and that's the only place he's happy. So I put a booklet back there. You may, well, not enough to go around, but you might want to share some of that and look at the set list. What he played 1,000 songs. He wrote 1,000 songs. The lyrics book is back there, and I'm going to give the new one. The new one just came out. I'm going to give that one to the library to go with the rest of the books. There's 7,000 academic courses on Dylan in higher education in America. 7,000 courses. Tremendous talent. Ed Bradley asked him, I heard that Ed Bradley was a 60-minute interview. He said, "I heard that you wrote Blow It in the Wind in 10 minutes. And Bob said, "About right. I needed the money." That was his limited comment on that. Mick Jagger, he told Mick, said, "Look, Mick," said, "I could write Satisfaction in 5 minutes. You can't write Desolation Road in the rest of your life." He wasn't without an ego in the whole thing. So he had to be very, very talented to do all that. In that interview, he told Bradley, he said, "I could do that then, but I can't do it now. I can do other things." And of course, there's old Bob Dylan, there's new Bob Dylan. There's a whole new series of stuff that's come out, and he's still traveling. In March, he'll be in Lisbon. He starts off in Lisbon. So I wanted to say a little bit about the writing that he sort of inspired me to do that. My son Dan, probably more than anybody, and Dan said, "There's the cloud." I don't know what the cloud was. He said, but essentially boils down to sharing, and that you can give anything you've got free. The whole world becomes more knowledgeable if you've got anything special to give. The first thing I wrote was that "Play is where life is," that Mr. Floyd had a sign on his desk that said that, "Play is where life is." And I thought that and liked that. And the best chapter in it is on Wilson. Country Boykin and Ralph L. Ramey and Buddy Bidgood and those guys and Bill Marlowe and Tyson Jeanette, and I can name them. Funny people. And then in the back of that was the tennis stuff, and I really never was satisfied with the tennis. So I rewrote the Little Green Book of Tennis based on Harvey Pinnock's Little Red Book of Golf, which is the #1 selling golf book of all time. And there's a copy of that back there. And what I want to say in Wilson, and I'm so glad to be able to say it. I wrote it in the paper. This was I didn't sell books. I raised money. I asked people for money. Raised $25,000, spent 40. So, but what I did is went to every high school coach in North Carolina, and it's on a PDF. Every of the 4,000 players in North Carolina every year have it available freely. So that's something I'm really proud of. And your writing group, I started when I was 70 years old to write anything. And we got a blog and wrote 7 things that look like books. And it's been a hobby. It's been something I really didn't know I would be interested in doing. The Mitchner's book, I'm talking to this one person right here. Mitchner's book on the novel tells the trials and tribulations of a writer, what they go through. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Then there's a new movie out called Genius, and it deals with
Thomas Wolfe and Maxwell Perkins.
Pardon?
Thomas Wolfe.
That's right, and Max Perkins, and who was the Scribner publisher, and about writing. That movie's about writing, and a young writer would benefit from that as he would with Rebel in the Rye, which is about Salinger. And those two would be good for you. And I'm not talking probably anything you don't know, but writing is not easy. One English professor, critic writer, said that they were tired of going to cocktail parties where somebody would always say, "Oh, you're a writer. I've got a book, and I'm going to write a book." And almost always a doctor, excuse me, Dr. Lund, the doctor would say, "Well, you know, I got a lot of time, maybe 2 months at the end of August. I'll write my book then." And finally, the guy got fed up with it and said, "Yeah, I got the same 2 months, and I'm going to become a brain surgeon during that period of time." So, it's not an easy thing. I didn't know how to type. I didn't know how to run a computer. I didn't know what. I fell in with a bad publisher. I had no idea what editing is, how much is involved in editing. But there's a real value to it, and some real sense of accomplishment that I'd like to share with your young people. I don't want to go too long here. I do want to talk about, we go back to the war situation. If you followed that, the first song in the backdrop of the Vietnam series was Hard Rain. And Hard Rain was written right in a nuclear period of time. It was about hiding under your desk. So they used that. Then they used all the music, the anti-war music, John Brown. But the thing that scared me most when my enemy got close is that I realized his face looked just like mine. And then you listen to that music, and here's "With God on Our Side." If God's on our side, He'll stop the next war. And all that was pretty prescient in 1962. One of the songs in there that was a backdrop was "Farewell Angelina." And I thought, I read it. I heard that song I don't know how many times. I thought it was about a boy leaving his girlfriend. It wasn't that at all. The sky is erupting, and I must leave. I must go where it's quiet. So the people that went to Canada, those people who protested, those people had the courage to do that. Some thought they were cowards. Some thought they had a lot of courage. We're in a period of time now where we still protest. The protest movement in America was very powerful. It got Richard Nixon. It stopped the bombing. It brought him home. And I just heard or read where Howard Zinn said the fundamental thing a citizen does is to tell the truth as they see it. And Oprah Winfrey just said the same thing at the Golden Globe. She said, "You got to speak out." And the women and the good men, we got to speak out now about abuse, battering people getting drunk, beating their children up. That's wrong. And it's a current problem, and it's worthy of protest. So I think you have to speak that voice when the time comes. When I went to school here, And it was all white. Wasn't a black child in the school. 1960, well, 1941, South Africa put apartheid in. In 1960, Nelson Mandela began the first of 27 years in prison. They overcame that. And my suggestion to you is that the principles that you learn here from the people like Mildred Hartsock, Dan Hensley, and Billy Tucker, and all those people, they're here now. They're lifelong, worthwhile people. You people that support the school, you're doing a good thing. And I wanted to come get that off my chest. So that's about it. I want to end showing you one last film. This comes at graduation at Stellenbosch University in South Africa. And the backdrop, of course, is Dylan music. But just this is 5 minutes, and if I can get my tech man to do this, then we'll be through. Let me do a couple of housekeeping items. I prepared a Dylan test. It's a matching test. And I put a business card back there. Margaret has got those. If you want to take the test and mail in your copy, I'll grade them and see how I'll send you a prize. I'll send you a Dylan book. There's a table there now, not back there with the stuff I've already given them, but there's a table up here that, other than this black case, I have 3 grandsons, and so I did a case, and leave me those for, that's Andre's, Dan. So other than that, any of that stuff you want to take, there's a couple of Barton history books, a couple of lyrics books, my books, so that's there for you. Now, I do believe that change is possible. It used to be cannibals. You know, look what happened to the cigarette industry in my lifetime. In this town, we can make change. It takes some courage, and I want to be on the right side of it. Dylan said it's not dark yet, but it's getting there. So thank you. I'll be glad to take any question, or I'll stay around if anybody wants to remember anything. If you have a question, let it fly. If not, I'm not a Dylanologist. I don't believe it was God, but I can answer some questions.
My name's Larry Cleveland. You're one of my teachers here.
No. You taught me. You drove my school bus.
You taught in tennis. You taught me something. It was called the theory of immediate success. I've used it every day of my life in teaching kids, in coaching. What you, Mr. Floyd, Kay Jeffries, I'm nervous right now. What you taught us saved my life, woke me up, and I've used what y'all taught me, contrary to what most people believe. I'm able to now, at the end of this year, retire from teaching, and I bet you didn't think that was going to happen.
I remember you well, buddy. You were a good kid. Thank you for being here, and if you have anything you want to, I'll give you, thank God, I'm cleaning out the garage, so anything you want or any question, I'll be glad here. Ralph Nader spoke then, and I was going to take it back, and the line got small, and I said, you people now, this is the last question, and Nader said, no, I stay here till the last one leaves, no matter what. So if you got something to say to me, I'll be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. And I'd like to thank you for sharing your wonderful life with us, for your wonderful outlook toward life, your service to the library, your service to Barton College. Our next library talk event will be in early April with Drew Perry. Be sure to look out for further announcements on that. I'd like to thank the Friends of the Hackney Library for supplying the food for this evening. So thank you, wonderful food. Please feel free to take some on your way out. Please drive carefully in the dark. Thanks again for coming. Good night.